research to you. And for all of you listening, this conversation is about pesticides and about organic versus conventional. I'm just going to read a couple articles to you, and I hope to God this goes viral. Not because I want more followers, because I care about the children. I mean, like, it really matters to me, guys. So much so that I'm taking my Saturday to read these articles to you, do this research, set this up, and shoot a video. So if this resonates with you, if you care about your families, if you care about your health, if you care about the children, guys, if you care about the health of the environment and our future generations, share this post. Share this post to your loved ones. Share this post to your wall. Tell people about this. Go look at these articles. Go read and research for yourself this information because it's out there. It's not that hard to find. There's a lot of it. And more is coming out, and that's beautiful. 3 things you can't hide: the sun, the moon, and the truth. They will come about. So, as you listen to this, if it resonates, please share it. Please make this go viral. Please help me change the health and fitness industry. Bring a voice, bring light, bring awareness to this conversation, because Steffi's not the only one. It's not your fault, Steffi. Somebody told you, you believed it, you didn't question it, you didn't research it, you went with it. And the mistake was you shared it with your audience like you were a leading authority in this field and knew what you were talking about. And what you shared jeopardizes the health of the children. And I'm not cool with that. So I want to share some of this information. This is from gmofreeusa.org. This is a research overview. And I'm going to give you the URL. Discernment, right? Desire and discernment. Go figure this out. Go look this up yourself. Please. Thank you. Glyphosate. I'm just going to go into glyphosate. Okay, it's the active ingredient in Roundup and what we talk about in relation to pesticides and what I'm going to talk about mainly. Glyphosate is the so-called active chemical ingredient. I'm just going to read to you guys. I hope this sticks. This is the active chemical ingredient in Roundup herbicide, as well as many other name brand glyphosate-based weed killers. While we're focused here on glyphosate, it should be noted that according to the studies, the full formula herbicide may be up to 1,000 times more toxic than glyphosate alone. But we're just going to talk about glyphosate. That was a cited quote from Mesnage 2013 and Defarge 2016. Go read it. If I butcher the language, so be it. You get the point here. What chemical manufacturers label as inert ingredients or adjuvants. Where have I heard that word floating around recently? I'll continue. They've been found to magnify the toxicity of glyphosate. So these adjuvants or extra ingredients make glyphosate even more toxic. This is most disturbing because the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, approval process for pesticides requires pre-market safety toxicity studies that focus only on the so-called active chemical and ignore the harms from those other additional ingredients, the adjuvants. So no testing on the full formula herbicide is required at all. So even if glyphosate's really bad, we know the other stuff makes it more bad, but they don't have to test that. Curious? We continue. Glyphosate-based herbicides are most commonly used in the world, and their use has increased exponentially with the introduction of genetically modified crops. According to the most recent USDA data, in 2016, 94% of soybean and 89% of corn acreage in the U.S. were planted with GM herbicide-tolerant varieties. We'll get into that, why that is. Sugar beet acreage in the U.S. is over 99% herbicide-tolerant. The majority of herbicide-tolerant crops are engineered to be sprayed with a glyphosate-based herbicide, sometimes in combination with other herbicides as well, such as dicamba or 2,4-D. Glyphosate can potentially drift from the site of application, moving from one field to another and damaging crops not genetically modified to tolerate the herbicide. Reddy 2010 is the study cited there. Drift can cause non-GMO crops to suffer from lower yields or total crop loss. This risk and fear of damage to non-GMO crops from pesticide drift has contributed to the increase in the use of genetically modified crops. Farmers are choosing to grow GMO crops instead of non-GMO crops to protect themselves from the loss of profits from their crops being killed by neighboring crops using pesticides. This is very obvious. Anybody that gardens, has a backyard. My neighbor has a farm right there. Not even a farm, it's a pasture for goats. The lawn people come in, they spray the Roundup on the grass. The drift from the wind is really strong up here. It killed about 10 feet worth of their grass on the other side of the fence. So badly, and then the goats were eating this glyphosate-ridden pesticide grass. The goats were getting sick, and their field was dying. They had to put up signs and say, hey, don't spray your shit around here. You're killing our crops. Okay? So drift from pesticides is messing up non-pesticide organic crops. And so now farmers are being pushed into a corner where they have to use GMO, pesticide-resilient seeds and crops just to make a living and not have their crops die. Okay, so that sucks. That's just something to talk about. Due to years of repeated spraying with glyphosate-based herbicides, weeds have developed resistance and rendered these herbicides less effective, causing farmers to spray even more glyphosate, Benbrook 2016. Since the introduction of GMO crops, glyphosate use has increased almost 15-fold. 15 times more glyphosate is used now than when it was originally introduced. Why? This is really easy. I learned about this in an anthropology class. Things with a shorter lifespan, they adapt faster, right? Because 10 generations for a mosquito is a month, I don't know, for us. So over 10 generations, they're going to adapt to whatever their environment was at the time. And so these animals, these plants are adapting to the levels of pesticides quickly. Enough so that the amount that we use year to year isn't enough to kill the pest or plant or weed the following year. So they have to use more. And so that is where that 15 times more number comes from. Again, guys, if this resonates at all, please share this. Please share this. This is important information, and I get plenty of people asking me about this. This is why JERF, Just Eat Real Food, is my mission. This is something that's very, very passionate to me because I've seen sick people that have become well, become healthy once they got this poison out of their body. Okay, let's continue. In response to this dramatic rise in glyphosate use and the resulting increase in glyphosate residue in crops and food, the agrochemical industry has petitioned the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, to incrementally increase the allowable safe levels of glyphosate residues in crops and food. This is against credible scientific evidence pointing to the need to lower the acceptable daily intake for glyphosate. Myers 2016, Kura 2016, Ibrahim 2016. The allowable levels of glyphosate in food were deemed safe not because there was scientific evidence providing their safety, but to accommodate farmers who were overusing the herbicide. So again, the environment adapted, we added more. Before that, they said, hey, we should probably use less. Contradictory information. There's a whole lot more of that coming. Just you wait. History of glyphosate. What is glyphosate? Let's talk a little bit about it. There are 3 separate patents on glyphosate, each for a different use. Glyphosate was first patented in 1964 by Stauffer Chemical as a metal chelator that was used to clean or descale commercial boilers and pipes. Glyphosate binds to and removes minerals such as manganese, zinc, and cobalt that are vital to human and animal health. Joe Hall, 2009. Zinc, immune system. Where have I heard that before? In the recent news. Continue. A second patent was filed in 1974 by Monsanto as an herbicide. United States patent, blah, blah, blah. Monsanto claims that glyphosate, which kills plants by disrupting the shikimate pathway, has no effect on humans because the shikimate pathway is not present in mammals. However, several studies now suggest harm to mammals from glyphosate-based herbicides through a variety of different mechanisms. Meyer 2016, Ibrahim 2016. We'll talk about that later, but the bacteria that outnumber us on our body, 10 to 1, the microbiome, the one that we have in our stomach, one we have in our brain, as we have very clear evidence now, everybody's heard the word microbiome, right? Most people don't know what it is, but it's a bunch of bacteria. And disrupting the shikimate pathway messes up these bacteria. If they have a 10 to 1 population on our body and they dictate pretty much all the functions that we have, and you fuck them up, what's going to happen to us? Indirect, right? Indirect correlation there. In 2003, Monsanto filed for a third patent on glyphosate as a parasitic control type antimicrobial or antibiotic. United States patent, blah, blah, blah. This patent was granted in 2010. It is proposed that glyphosate be used as a treatment for microbial infections and parasitic control of various diseases such as malaria. The microbiota of humans and animals, however, plays an important role in their immune system. Gosh, why have I not heard much of that word immune system lately? Glyphosate-based herbicides may act as an antibiotic, harming beneficial animal gut bacteria. Perchurioni 2013, Ackerman 2014, Shaheda 2013, Schrodel 2014. So basically, glyphosate is an antibiotic that destroys our microbiome. I don't even need to elaborate on that. We'll get into it here, but if you've Googled anything about that, antibiotics, bad for the microbiome, fucks everything up, right? Basic stuff, we know that. So we know glyphosate kills our microbiome, which directly influences our nervous system and our immune system, our gut health, our mood, our entire life. Glyphosate, the ubiquity of glyphosate. In the most recent USDA 2013 Annual Pesticide Data Program report on food testing for pesticide residues, the USDA concluded, based on the results of their testing, that our food supply contains safe levels of pesticides. One big problem. The USDA report claims that they didn't test for glyphosate. They never have, which, as previously noted, is the most widely used herbicide in conventional agriculture. So the one that we're using the most, we're not testing for at all. And so then we say it's safe, but how do we know that? This is surprising, given that farmers are reporting increased usage resulting from the rise in herbicide-tolerant weeds, like we talked about, and given the fact that the EPA has incrementally increased the allowable residue tolerance levels on various food crops at the request of the chemical industry without scientific basis. We talked about that. The USDA's report, Genetically Engineered Crops in the United States, USDA Economic Research Service 2014, disclosed that the amount of glyphosate-based herbicide applied to GM corn crops increased from approximately 1.5 pounds per planted acre in 2001 and 2005 to more than 2 pounds planted in 2010. God knows what it is now. It's probably a lot higher than that. If in 5 years it went up a half pound and it's been another 10, that's another pound at least. And again, like we said, the environment is adapting and becoming more resilient, so we're having to use even more and more exponentially, so it's actually probably higher than that. So if we take 2 at another, 3.5 pounds per planted acre, pounds of poison, guys. Take one rat pellet. One rat poison pellet? Is it gonna kill you? No. Do it every day for a long time? Probably not gonna be so good for your health. Now start taking 3, 5, 7, 10, more and more every year. What's gonna happen? While glyphosate goes hand in hand with GM agriculture, many people are aware, genetically modified agriculture, many people are unaware that glyphosate is also used on many non-GMO crops as a desiccant, ripening, or drying agent. This is so important, guys. You need to listen to this. When these crops, such as wheat, barley, sugarcane, oats, lentils, beans, edible peas, chickpeas, sunflowers, potatoes, and cantaloupe. How many of you out there buy potatoes, sunflower seeds, lentils, beans, oats, wheat? Even non-GMO versions of these crops are getting sprayed. When they are nearly mature, farmers are allowed to spray glyphosate herbicides on that crop to kill the plant, which causes it to dry down for a quicker harvest. Sounds like somebody's trying to make money, right? Industrial something or other. Glyphosate and aminomethylphosphonic acid, AMPA, a breakdown metabolite of glyphosate, have routinely been detected in food, Bone 2013, and glyphosate residues may remain on food several months after spraying, Cox 1995. Glyphosate and AMPA have previously been detected in the air, sources of drinking water, it's a really big one, and precipitation in the rainfall. Majewski 2014, Badaglin 2014. AMPA is considered to be more persistent than glyphosate in the environment, Cox 1995. Glyphosate science. There's a growing body of scientific evidence that links glyphosate to health and environmental harm. This is where I want you guys to listen up, because this is the stuff that's going to happen, is happening to humanity and the environment due to the use of this poison. Health impacts. It's literally labeled a poison, guys. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, the Specialized Cancer Agency of the World Health Organization, WHO, concluded that there is sufficient evidence of glyphosate's carcinogenicity, there we go, in experimental animals and classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. International Agency for Research on Cancer, 2015. A jury in U.S. federal court in California delivered a $289 million verdict against Monsanto, the primary manufacturer of glyphosate-based herbicides, on behalf of a school groundskeeper who developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after repeated exposure to Monsanto's Roundup herbicide. We're going to get into the lawsuit stuff a little bit at the end, but just know that Monsanto, the producer, lost in court and had to pay $300 million to one person who got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from exposure to glyphosate and pesticides. From exposure to glyphosate. Currently, about 8,700 other people diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma are being diagnosed to glyphosate-based herbicide and are also suing Monsanto. Again, we'll get into that. That's 2018. There's new research on that, or new information that I'll share with you. Court information. Lawsuits will likely continue because the manufacturer and the companies are communities that have exposed the people to glyphosate-based herbicides. An in vitro study of AMPA, that amino acid that we talked about, or that aminomethylphosphonic acid that is in glyphosate, a breakdown metabolite of glyphosate, was observed to be more toxic than glyphosate. More toxic than glyphosate. On human embryonic, kidney, and placental cells, and in combination of glyphosate and AMPA was more toxic than one or the other alone. Bennett Shore, 2008. So, toxic to placental cells. So, if there's glyphosate pesticides going into your system and you're pregnant, you're poisoning your baby. I didn't say it. They said it in 2008, bruh. Studies suggest glyphosate-based herbicides at relatively low levels may be endocrine disruptors. Gasnier, 2009, Myers, 2016. With the ability to potentially reduce testosterone levels. Claire, 2012. Abarukwu, 2015. Impair sperm quality. Abarukwu, 2015. Owabaruyo, 2017. Or cause disturbances in the reproductive development of rodents when they were exposed during puberty. Romano, 2010. There's pictures of this. You can go look at the mice. Pink testicles, blue testicles, atrophied, sick, infertile. The next generation after they were birthed, the mice, the generation after they were exposed, the babies of that next generation, they were sick, had way higher rates of cancer, and they were infertile. Gosh, infertility. Poison. Placental cells, kids. Okay, let's continue. Studies have also reported kidney and liver damage in rodents. You can see the pictures before and after. It's gnarly. Including potential for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's what you'll also see. In some cases at glyphosate levels as low as 0.05 parts per billion. It doesn't have it here, but there's another video that you can see on the internet. The parts per billion that we're consuming, guys, and they dosed it dependent to the body weight of the rat to be proportionate to the average body weight of a human being. I can't remember the number, but it's like several hundred times more parts per billion. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 studies are cited there. I'm going to skip the names. They're ones we've already been talking about. Other studies have observed intestine smooth muscle activity disturbances. Klopeka 2017, Klopeka 2014. And in one study, children of rats exposed to glyphosate-based herbicide had altered gut microbiota in early development. So we're messing up the microbiome. We already talked about that. And now we're talking about messing up the smooth muscle activity in the intestines. And let's just take that one step further. You have the cilia. They're the little furry, fuzzy shag carpet on your intestinal linings. And then the nutrients come in and they absorb through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream and so on. The glyphosate is basically destroying these cilia. And they've measured this. They studied this, the shortening of the cilia, the little hairs. So it's disrupting the microbiome, killing the microbiome, which we know influences our immune system, our nervous system, so on and so on. We already talked about that. I'm coming back to it, don't you worry. And also, it's messing up the intestinal lining. And what's that word? Leaky gut? Something like that? Yeah, intestinal permeability. Huge issue related to what? Autoimmune disease. Why? Quick lesson. This is module 1 of my nutrition course, guys, of like basic stuff. I'm no master at this information. It's basic stuff that you can read out there. If you mess up the intestinal lining, you're basically letting things through the gate that aren't supposed to go there. And so we're going to get more into this. I love it. If you've got stuff going into the bloodstream that's not supposed to be there, what does your immune system do? Fucking get it. That stuff is not good. Attack, right? And so you've got a little piece of avocado going down, and then there's a little gap in your intestine, and boop, it goes into the bloodstream, and your immune system says, attack that. That's not supposed to be here. That's a foreign invader. It registers it as a foreign invader. And so now your body has this snapshot of avocado, and it's like, okay, anytime we got it, fuck yeah, anytime that comes back, let's get it before it messes anything up. So anytime you have an avocado, especially if your intestinal permeability is compromised, aka you have leaky gut, aka you have any kind of toxicity, any kind of glyphosate, any kind of environmental toxins going into your system that are going to compromise the gut, you are going to attack, you're going to have an acute inflammatory response, immune response, automatically to this food that comes in. What does that sound like? Autoimmune, right? An autoimmune response. Automatically your immune system responds. And so now, every time you have an avocado, you have an acute inflammatory autoimmune response. What does that sound like for people? Oh, it's allergies. So we have this association now between autoimmune disease, allergies, leaky gut, and glyphosate. Let us continue. Along with an increase in glyphosate use on crops, there's been a 500% average increase in the level of glyphosate found in human urine. You have 5 times more glyphosate in your body now than whatever recently when it first came out, Mills 2017. One study found higher urinary glyphosate levels in pregnant women was associated with a shorter gestational length, which is associated with a reduction in lifetime cognitive achievement. So if you've got pesticides going in during pregnancy, you're likely going to have an early term birth, which is going to influence your child's ability to develop their brain and to develop how to think and be a fully functioning human. So you put it in and you're messing up your kid. Okay, Steph, you still with me, Steffi? Continuing. Another study observed humans that were chronically ill had significantly higher glyphosate residues in their urine than their healthy counterparts. So we know if we have any kind of comorbidities or any kind of other environmental threat going on out there, maybe like a pathogen or maybe like a virus or something like that, I don't know, then if you have these toxins in your body, if you have a compromised microbiome, if you have intestinal permeability, then you have a higher chance of being more chronically ill or essentially not being able to fight it off and be healthy and survive like a normal human should, as the immune system was developed over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Environmental impacts. The environment is adversely impacted by the use of glyphosate-based herbicides such as Roundup. These adverse effects occur at environmentally relevant levels, such as the levels much lower than those used for landscaping and agricultural purposes. So the amount that we're using is way more than the amount needed to fuck up the environment, kill the microbes in the soil, microbiome. We're repeating ourselves here a little bit. In both freshwater and saltwater aquatic ecosystems, glyphosate-based herbicides have adverse effects. Glyphosate-based herbicides are a contributing factor in harmful cyanobacteria blooms, Zhang 2016. I don't know what that means. Aquatic species that serve as food for fish and amphibians, such as Daphnia ambigua, have increased mortality due to exposure to low doses of glyphosate-based herbicides. There's overwhelming evidence that various fish and amphibian species are also adversely impacted by low-dose exposure to glyphosate-based herbicides. Remember, again, lower than what we're actually putting into the environment, and that number is going up every year. Native aquatic plants grown around lakes support beneficial bacteria that consume debris and potentially harmful organisms while increasing water clarity and providing habitat to fish and other water life. However, these aquatic plants and the beneficial bacteria they support are often injured or killed by the antibiotic glyphosate-based herbicides. Glyphosate-based herbicides are also harmful to various species of crustaceans and mollusks. So it's a poison that is poisonous to fucking everything. Weird. In and around agricultural lands, glyphosate-based herbicides have been a major contributor in the reduction of the monarch butterfly, and this has been shown to also alter bee behavior and adversely impact amphibians. So Google search dying bees and how that's super fucking important. Glyphosate-based herbicides can also harm beneficial insects such as the green lacewing and two-spotted ladybug. Other beneficial organisms such as several spiders and earthworms are also adversely impacted by glyphosate-based herbicide use. Okay, environmental impacts, let's sum it up. Glyphosate fucks everything up, and we're using way more than the amount needed to fuck shit up. A medical perspective, pediatrician Michelle Perot, 32 years of work in the field and so on. She has her credibility at the bottom of this paper. Again, if you want these resources, please message me. I'd love to send them to you. Parentheses, Steffi. Digestive health, this is her quote. Digestive health, digestion, intestinal permeability, autoimmune disease, microbiome. Digestive health is rapidly declining in children, brah. The children. If children eat conventionally grown food, they will potentially be eating glyphosate, pesticide adjuvants, and GMOs as documented by these laboratory tests. What is happening to our children is several-fold. Alteration of their microbiome with subsequent issues of detoxification, production of vitamins and minerals, I would assume, like the chelator that it is. It's not allowing them to be able to absorb zinc, manganese, and like we talked about. And repair of their intestinal lining due to the antibiotic, antimicrobial effects of glyphosate. Additionally, they are mineral deficient because of the chelation of glyphosate. There's a laboratory evidence of zinc deficiency, for example, which then leads to immunological weakness and impairment, since zinc is an important cofactor in immune system function. Has zinc been coming up recently in the news related to the immune system? So this stops that from working right. And so your immune system isn't going to work right, which means you'd be more compromised to environmental pathogens, like what we were just talking about. That's really interesting. Must be a coincidence. Children are also experiencing an exponential increase in allergies. Oh, I think we talked about that, which can be linked to a lack of recognition of rogue proteins produced by genetically altered proteins in foods. This can subsequently cause an activation of their immune systems and production of antibodies against foods. The body seeing the foods as foreign invaders and producing an acute immune response. I'm not making this shit up, guys. Like I said, this is basic news, Steph. The bioaccumulation effects, that means the continual layering and addition of more and more of this poison, have not been addressed in children, and the standards of safety are arbitrary and not based on any clinical evidence. Overwhelming scientific evidence documents the potential harm of glyphosate. So it's super bad and definitely not good for kids, probably worse, but we haven't even started to test for that yet. So that is just the first article talking about the impact of this poison on the environment and on human health. Now, let's go over to usrtk.org, pesticides, glyphosate, health concerns, okay? This is the US right to know. There's a lot of legal stuff in here that's also awesome because new information is coming out during these court cases that are exposing this fucking ridiculous game that's being played. Glyphosate, posted on October 1st, 2020. Glyphosate fact sheet, cancer and other health concerns. Glyphosate, a synthetic herbicide patented in 1974, now manufactured, sold by many companies in hundreds of products, has been associated with cancer and other health concerns. Glyphosate is best known as the active ingredient in Roundup, branded herbicides, and the herbicide used with Roundup-ready genetically modified organisms. Herbicide tolerance is the most prevalent GMO trait engineered into food crops, with some 90% corn, soybeans, U.S. engineered, tolerate herbicides. We talked about that already. Here's some key facts about glyphosate. Most widely used pesticide. According to a February 2016 study, glyphosate is the most widely used pesticide in the U.S. No pesticide has come remotely close to such an intensive and widespread use. Who makes it? Who's profiting from that? We'll talk about that in a moment. Statement by the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics, FIGO. This is statements from scientists and healthcare providers. This is LOL. Wait till we get to this controversy, baby. Reproductive and Environmental Health Committee says, we recommend that glyphosate exposure to populations should end with a full global phase out. July 2019. Essay in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. Is it time to reassess safety standards for glyphosate-based herbicides? June 2017. Consensus statement in Environmental Health Journal. Concerns over the use of glyphosate-based herbicides and risks associated with exposures. A consensus statement. February 2016. So now let's talk about cancer. Let's get into some more of the specific traits of how it actually expresses as disease in the body. We did a little bit. I'm going to nail it again. You guys need to know this. And again, if you know anybody that's dealing with any of these conditions, share this with them. Go read it yourself. Get involved. You can do this research. The internet is your tool. Don't say I'm confused by the information. I went on Google. This was on the first page. Negative health effects of pesticides and glyphosate. Okay. 2015, the World Health Organization's. This is so great, guys, because the people that make it and the people that say it's okay, who are friends with the people that make it and get money from them, have a huge controversy going on with the actual research that says, oh no, it's actually fucking terrible for you. So let's get into that. This is great. This is great. This is exposing the truth, the corruption in just this one little industry. And if this makes you question this one thing related to how they're lying to you about your health to get more money, what else might be in that wheelhouse? In 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans after reviewing years of published and peer-reviewed scientific studies. The team of international scientists found there was a particular association between glyphosate and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. We talked a little bit about that. We'll get into it more. U.S. agencies. At the time of IARC classification, the Environmental Protection Agency was conducting a registration review. The EPA's Cancer Assessment Review Committee, CARC, issued a report in September 2016 concluding that glyphosate was not likely to be carcinogenic to humans. So the EPA's Cancer Assessment Committee, so basically some branch of the EPA, said that glyphosate is probably not a big deal at doses relevant to human health. Quoting here, in December 2016, the EPA convened a scientific advisory panel to review the report, and members were divided in their assessments of the EPA's work, with some finding the EPA erred in how it evaluated certain research. Oh, collusion! Additionally, the EPA's Office of Research and Development determined the EPA's Office of Pesticide Programs had not followed proper protocols in its evaluation of glyphosate, and said the evidence could be deemed to support a likely carcinogenic or suggestive evidence, continuing to hold the carcinogenicity classification. Nevertheless, the EPA issued a draft report on glyphosate in December of 2017, continuing to hold that the chemical is not likely to be carcinogenic. In April 2019, the EPA reaffirmed its position that glyphosate poses no risk at all to public health. But earlier in that same month, the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, ATDSDR, reported that there are links between glyphosate and cancer. And according to the draft report from the ATSDR, quote unquote, numerous studies reported risk ratios greater than one. Some of you may not know what that means. It's significant for associations between glyphosate exposure and risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or multiple myeloma. The EPA issued an interim registration review decision in January 2020 with updated information about its position on glyphosate. So basically, the EPA is saying, not a big deal at all. And then the people that are doing the research are going, ooh, yeah, they didn't do that research right. They actually made errors and came to, they had not followed protocols. So fuckery, collusion in the research by the people that make it. And say it's okay, who are friends with the people that make it. Again, just bring it back to that. European Union. European Food Safety Authority and the European Chemicals Agency have said glyphosate's not likely to be carcinogenic to humans. A March 2017 report by environmental and consumer groups argued that regulators relied improperly on research that was directed and manipulated by the chemical industry. 2019 study found that Germany's Federal Institute for Risk Assessment report on glyphosate, which found no cancer risk, included sections of text that had been plagiarized from Monsanto studies. In February 2020, reports surfaced that 24 scientific studies submitted to the German regulators to prove the safety of glyphosate came from a large German laboratory that had been accused of fraud and other wrongdoings in the past. So the research that they're putting out to the public for you to read, saying it's okay and safe, is from a place that is known to be a lying, corrupt agency, organization, laboratory, okay? World Health Organization. Yeah, World Health. Joint meeting on pesticide residues determined in 2016 that glyphosate was unlikely to pose a carcinogenic risk to humans from exposure through the diet. But this finding was tarnished by conflict of interest concerns after it came to light that the chair and co-chair of the group also held leadership positions with the International Life Sciences Institute, a group funded in part by Monsanto and one of its lobbying organizations. So the people who said it's cool are getting paid by the people that make it. We continue. California OEHHA. On March 28, 2017, the California Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment confirmed it would add glyphosate to California's Proposition 65 list of chemicals known to cause cancer. Monsanto sued to block the action, but the case was dismissed. No, don't tell everybody. Ah, shit. In a separate case, I think that's part's less relevant. Request, they wanted to reconsider, and they found some fucking weasel way around it. Agricultural health study. A long-running U.S. government-backed prospective cohort study of farm families in Iowa and North Carolina has not found any connections between glyphosate use and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but the researchers reported that among applicators in the highest exposure quartile, there was an increased risk of acute myeloid leukemia, AML, compared with non-users. The most recent published update to the study was made public in late 2017. This article is full of links. Go check them out. Recent studies linking glyphosate to cancer and other health concerns. Just talking about cancer here. And so let's sum that last little bit up. We've got a bunch of governing bodies telling you it's safe, getting paid by the people making it, and then we have research coming out saying that's absolutely not true. And in fact, the people putting that out are corrupt, have been caught before lying or doing some kind of bullshit criminal activity. And what was the other part of that? They're getting paid by the people who make it, and they're saying it's safe. And the research is saying, no, it's not. You guys are lying. And, plagiarism. That was the other thing I want to say. Yeah, plagiarizing. Monsanto, plagiarism, collusion, criminal activity. Where are we going with this, guys? Who's controlling the food? February 2020, paper in Environmental Health. A comprehensive analysis of the animal carcinogenicity data from glyphosate from chronic exposure rodent carcinogenicity studies. Reviewed chronic exposure animal carcinogenicity studies of glyphosate and reported toxicologically plausible pathways for why glyphosate may cause various cancers in rodents. It's a really smart way of saying, hey, we found pathways that can actually be directly correlated to the fact that glyphosate is, in fact, increasing the risk of cancer. April 2019, the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry issued its draft toxicological profile for glyphosate, which reports an increased cancer risk from glyphosate exposures. Emails released via court proceedings show officials at EPA and Monsanto tried to hinder this report. Again, no, don't tell people. Okay? By the people that make it, who are getting all the money. March 2019, study published in the International Journal of Epidemiology analyzed data from more than 30,000 farmers and agricultural workers from studies done in France, Norway, and the U.S., basically all around the world, and reported links between glyphosate and diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. Again, all around the world, glyphosate, cancer. February 2019, a meta-analysis. That means analyzing a bunch of research all in one study, published in Mutation Research, a compelling link between glyphosate-based herbicides and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. 3 of the study authors were members of the EPA's Scientific Advisory Panel on Glyphosate, who have stated publicly on record that the EPA failed to follow proper scientific practices in its glyphosate assessment, aka collusion, criminal activity. January 2019, an analysis published in the Environmental Sciences Europe argues that the US EPA's classification of glyphosate disregarded substantial scientific evidence of genotoxicity, the negative impact on a cell's genetic material associated with weed-killing products such as Roundup. Okay, so all over the world, glyphosate, cancer, correlation, toxicology pathway. Okay, just summarizing here. Stay with me. Endocrine disruption, fertility and reproductive concerns. Back to the children. Okay, your hormones, are they important? Men testosterone, female estrogen, want to keep a good balance, right? October 2020, paper in Chemosphere Journal, Glyphosate and the Key Characteristics of an Endocrine Disruptor, a review, is the first comprehensive review consolidating the mechanistic evidence on glyphosate as an endocrine disrupting chemical. The paper concluded that the world's most widely used herbicide meets at least 8 of the 10 8 of the 10 key characteristics of an endocrine disruptor, as proposed in an expert consensus statement published in 2020. New research adds evidence that weed killer glyphosate disrupts hormones, by Carrie Gilliam, USRTK, November 13th, 2020. So research is coming out on this right now, and they're getting slammed. And it's on the internet, easily accessible for you. July 2020 paper published in Molecular and Cellular Endocrinology. Are glyphosate and glyphosate-based herbicides endocrine disruptors that alter female fertility? They summarized that the endocrine disrupting effects of exposure to glyphosate and glyphosate-based herbicides at low or environmentally relevant doses, which again, remember, it's way higher than that, in the female endocrine disrupting effects of exposure to glyphosate and glyphosate-based herbicides at low or environmentally relevant doses in the female reproductive tissues. There's data suggesting that at low doses, glyphosate-based herbicides may have adverse effects on the female reproductive tract, fertility, and that's discussed in that paper. June 2020, paper published in Veterinary and Animal Science. Glyphosate-based herbicide formulations and reproductive toxicity in animals concludes that some ingredients of glyphosate-based herbicides appear to act as reproductive toxicants, having a wide range of effects on both the male and female reproductive systems, including endocrine disruption, tissue damage, and dysfunction of gametogenesis. So you can go look this up. Again, you can see sperm mutation, the testicles are just messed up in these mice. Plenty of data there, infertility of the next generation, and so on. June 2020 paper published in Environmental Pollution. Neonatal exposure to a glyphosate-based herbicides alters the uterine differentiation of prepubertal ewe lambs, so teenage lambs. Finds that neonatal exposure to glyphosate-based herbicides decreased cell proliferation and altered the expression of molecules that control proliferation and development in the uterus, potentially affecting the female reproduction health of sheep. July 2020, study in the journal Toxicology and Applied Pharmacology. Ovarian, mitochondrial, and oxidative stress proteins are altered by glyphosate exposure in mice. They found indications that chronic low level, again, we're getting really high level, low level exposure to glyphosate alters the ovarian proteome and may ultimately impact ovarian function. September 2020, study in Food and Chemical Toxicology. Perinatal exposure to glyphosate or glyphosate-based formulation disrupts hormonal and uterine milieu during the receptive state in rats. Reports that perinatal exposure to glyphosate-based herbicide or glyphosate-disrupted critical hormone and uterine molecular targets during the receptive state, possibly associated with implantation failures. So, messing up reproductive tract. Okay, that one was a little wordy. 2018 ecological and population study conducted in Argentina. Argentina is getting hit really hard. There's more research on that. Found high concentrations of glyphosate in the soil and dust in agricultural areas that also reported higher rates of spontaneous abortion and congenital abnormalities in children, birth defects. This is documented. It's pretty hardcore. Suggesting a link between environmental exposure to glyphosate and reproductive problems. No other relevant sources of pollution were identified. No confounding variables. Glyphosate, birth defects. And spontaneous abortion, aka miscarriages. Sound familiar? Anybody of you out there that hide that as a secret? How many women do I know? How many mothers do I know that are trying to conceive and hit me up and say, hey, I've had 2 miscarriages. What do I do? Hey, I had a stillbirth. What do I do? Correlation here. 2018 ecological, that was the one. Okay, 2018 rat study by Argentinian researchers linked low-level perinatal glyphosate exposures to impaired female reproductive performance and congenital anomalies in the next generation of the offspring. A birth cohort study in Indiana published in 2017, the first study of glyphosate exposure in U.S. pregnant women using urine specimens as a direct measure of exposure. They found detectable levels of glyphosate in more than 90% of the pregnant women tested and found that the levels were significantly correlated with shortened pregnancy lengths. We talked about that. 2011 study in reproductive toxicology reported that glyphosate impairs male offspring reproductive development by disrupting gonadotropin expression. So again, we're talking about influencing not only the female reproductive system and fertility, but also the men's system. 2009 study in toxicology found that glyphosate-based herbicides are toxic and endocrine disruptors in human cell lines. Okay, so we've gone over cancer and endocrine disruption. There's more. Liver disease. 2017 study associated. This one's a good one. Very low-level glyphosate exposures to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in rats. According to the researchers, the results implied the chronic consumption of extremely low levels of Roundup, glyphosate-based herbicide, GBH, at admissible glyphosate equivalent concentrations are associated with marked alterations of the liver proteome and metabolome, the biomarkers for NAFLD. Basically, it's messing up the liver. Microbiome disruption. We talked about this. November 2020, recent paper in the Journal of Hazardous Materials reports that approximately 54% of species in the core of the human gut microbiome are potentially sensitive to glyphosate. So over half of your microbiome is getting killed by glyphosate. With a large proportion of bacteria in the gut microbiome susceptible to glyphosate, the intake of glyphosate may severely affect the composition of the human gut microbiome, the authors said in their paper. New glyphosate papers point to the urgency for more research on the chemical impact to human health. Carrie Gillum, USRTK, November 23rd. 2020 literature review of glyphosate's effects on the gut microbiome concludes that glyphosate residues on food cause dysbiosis. Okay? Given the opportunistic pathogens are more resistant to glyphosate compared to the commensal bacteria. The paper continues, glyphosate may be a critical environmental trigger in the etiology of several disease states associated with dysbiosis, including celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and irritable bowel syndrome. Glyphosate exposure may also have consequences for mental health, including anxiety and depression through alterations in the gut microbiome. That research is very strong and it's getting stronger and stronger. The gut-brain axis, you influence the gut microbiome, you influence your mental health. Increase anxiety, increase depression, throw off the HPA axis, and so on and so on. 2018 rat study conducted by the Ramazzini Institute reported that low-dose exposures to Roundup, low dose, again, we're getting high doses, at levels considered safe, which aren't safe, significantly altered the gut microbiota in some of the rat pups in a dose relevant to the proportion of the average body weight of a human. Research from 2017 correlated glyphosate. There's one more. Another 2018 study reported that higher levels of glyphosate administered to rice disrupted the gut microbiota and caused anxiety and depression-like behaviors in the mice. Okay, now we're going over the environment again. Harmful impacts on bees and monarch butterflies. 2018 study reported that glyphosate damaged the beneficial gut bacteria in honeybees and made them more prone to deadly infections. This followed research from China showing that honeybee larvae grew more slowly and died more often when exposed to glyphosate. That's weird. They get poisoned and they don't live as long or have a healthy life. And a 2015 study found field levels of exposure impaired the cognitive capacities of honeybees. Research from 2017 correlated glyphosate use with the reduced populations of monarch butterflies, possibly due to reductions in their food source. Cancer lawsuits. This is a big one. This is what I wanted to get to. Okay, again, people that make it, people that are homies with people that make it, that say it's safe, have been caught lying multiple times and are then getting totally refuted by a bunch of scientific research, all the stuff that I just read, that said it actually is really, really fucking bad for you. Okay, so now we've got lawsuits, cancer lawsuits. More than 42,000 people have filed suit against Monsanto Company, now Bayer Pharmaceutical. So the pharmaceutical company owns Monsanto, who makes the pesticide. You guys have any correlation to pharmaceuticals? Pharmaceuticals. Pesticides. Same company. Interesting. Alleging that exposure to Roundup herbicide caused them and their loved ones to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and that Monsanto covered up the risks, which we talked about. They tried multiple times to cover it up as the research was coming out. And as part of the discovery process, this is great. You can find these documents. Monsanto has had to turn over millions of pages of internal records. We are posting these Monsanto papers as they become available. There's hyperlinks, and you can go right now in public record and find these papers. For news and tips about the ongoing legislation, you can follow this. The first three trials ended in large awards to the plaintiffs for liability and damages, with juries ruling that Monsanto's weed killer was a substantial contributing factor in causing them to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Bayer is appealing the rulings. Weird. Monsanto influence in research. In March 2017, the federal court judge unsealed some internal Monsanto documents that raised new questions about Monsanto's influence on the EPA process and about the research regulators rely on. The documents suggest that Monsanto's long-standing claims about the safety of glyphosate and Roundup do not necessarily rely on science, as the company asserts, but on efforts to manipulate the science. Interesting. More information about scientific interference, links, the Monsanto papers poisoning the scientific well, Roundup litigation discovery documents, implications for public health and journal ethics, letter to Nature, blah, blah, blah. There's more in there. Sri Lankan scientists awarded AAAS Freedom Award for kidney disease research. The AAAS has awarded two Sri Lankan scientists, Doctors Chana Jayasumana and Sarath Gunatalaki the 2019 Award for Scientific Freedom and Responsibility for their work to investigate a possible connection between glyphosate and chronic kidney disease under challenging circumstances. Again, glyphosate in the water going through the kidney, fucking up the kidney. They're proving it. Scientists have reported that glyphosate plays a key role in transporting heavy metals to the kidneys of those drinking contaminated water, leading to high rates of chronic kidney disease in farming communities. See the papers, blah, 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 blah. There's like 6 of them. The AAAS award has been suspended amidst a fierce opposition campaign by pesticide industry allies to undermine the work of the scientists. And after review, the AAAS reinstated the award. Desiccation. We talked a little bit about this. I want to come back. This is very important because non-GMO crops are still getting sprayed with glyphosate, and they're crops that you're likely buying at the store. Some farmers use glyphosate on non-GMO crops such as wheat, barley, oats, and lentils to dry. And we talked to other ones too. There's sunflowers, potatoes. They do this to dry down the crop ahead of time, ahead of harvest, in order to accelerate the harvest. This practice, known as desiccation, may be a significant source of dietary exposure to glyphosate. You're getting glyphosate by eating these non-GMO foods that you think are healthy for you because they're spraying them in an attempt to get more, faster money. Glyphosate in food, U.S. drags its feet on testing. This is great, USDA. I love this. The USDA quietly dropped a plan to start testing food for residues of glyphosate in 2017. Internal agency documents obtained by the U.S. Right to Know showed the agency had planned to start testing over 300 samples of corn syrup for glyphosate in 2017, but the agency killed the project before it started. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration began a limited testing program in 2016, but the effort was fraught with controversy and internal difficulties, and the program was suspended in September 2016, that same year. Both agencies have programs that annually test foods for pesticides residues, but both have routinely skipped testing for glyphosate. Why? Why would you skip it? Why would you hide that? If you got nothing to hide, you would want to show that data, right? Why does everybody put organic on all their labels? Because they want people to know. That's why they make more money, because they can charge that, because they can say, hey, look, see? Why aren't they doing that? Before the suspension, one FDA chemist found alarming levels of glyphosate in many samples of U.S. honey, levels that were technically illegal because there have not been any allowable levels established for honey by the EPA. Here's a recap of the news about glyphosate found in food. October 2018, FDA issued its first ever report showing the results of glyphosate residue in food testing. The FDA said no residues of glyphosate were found in milk or eggs, but residues were found in 63% of corn samples and 67% of soybean samples, according to the FDA data. The agency did not disclose in that report the findings of glyphosate in oatmeal or honey products. April 2018, internal FDA emails indicated the agency had trouble finding food samples without traces of glyphosate. September 2016, FDA found glyphosate in U.S. honey at double the levels allowed in the European Union, and FDA tests confirm oatmeal and baby foods contain glyphosate. November 2016, FDA chemists found glyphosate in honey in Iowa at 10 times higher the level than allowed in the European Union. And we already talked about, the level that's allowed is already way beyond the level that we know is toxic for a human being. And this is 10 times higher than that. Also in November, independent testing by consumer group Food Democracy Now! Found glyphosate in Cheerios, oatmeal cookies, Ritz crackers, and other popular brands at high levels. Pesticides in our food. Where's the safety data? USDA data from 2016 shows detectable levels of pesticides in 85% or more of the 10,000 foods that were sampled. Everything from mushrooms to grapes to green beans. The government says there are little to no health risks, but some scientists say there is no or little data to back that up. And we already talked about it. It's a bunch of fuckery. It's a bunch of collusion, right? People that make it and the people that are homies with the people that make it, that get paid by the people that make it, are saying it's okay, but yet have been caught with criminal activity, and the research that I just listed to you for the last half hour says otherwise. Interesting. Okay? Now I'm just going to touch on this last little bit here about Roundup and cancer cases, key documents and analysis from the U.S. Right to Know in sense of these Monsanto papers that have been released due to the court cases that are forcing them to release these documents that they've hidden from people. On June 24, 2020, Bayer said that it will, Bayer, the pharmaceutical company that owns Monsanto, that is producing these pesticides and paying the other organizations like the EPA and the FDA and the USDA to say it's not a big deal. Let's bring it back to that. Go research Bayer. Where did Bayer start? Who started Bayer? What year was Bayer founded? What was the original formula for what Bayer was selling you? Go research Bayer, the people that are producing these pesticides and paying the people to tell you that pesticides aren't bad for you. Okay? They will pay more than $10 billion, $10 billion to settle tens of thousands of U.S. claims brought against Monsanto over claims Roundup and other glyphosate herbicides sold by the company cause a type of cancer called non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The proposed resolution came 2 years after Bayer bought Monsanto for $63 billion, and 1 year after U.S. District Judge Vince Chabraria ordered Bayer Monsanto to enter into the mediation with plaintiffs' attorneys. Settlement has been mired in difficulties, drawn complaints from plaintiffs who have been waiting years for either a day in court or compensation. And then it just goes on saying federal court updates. Company was to pay $10.1 to $10.9 billion total to resolve roughly 75% of the claims by an estimated 125,000 people that were exposed to Monsanto's weed killers, causing them to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The deal includes plaintiffs who have retained attorneys with the interest to sue and whose cases haven't even been filed yet. A payment of $8.8 billion was earmarked to resolve the current litigation. There's more there. Court updates. It's insane. Here's a closing paragraph from another article that just says, what is glyphosate doing to our gut flora, and is this linked to the chronic disease states which are blowing out globally, including autoimmune diseases, asthma, allergies, celiac, irritable bowel disorders, and all of its associated manifestations, including anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, autistic spectrum disorders, infertility, obesity, and more. So, I don't think I have anything that I need to add to this, because all I'm doing is just reading what other people have been saying. The people that are making pesticides have a fucking terrible track record, and they're paying the people that are telling you it's safe. Yet, those people have been caught performing criminal activity, withholding scientific information and papers, and then now new research is saying that they were not performing the research correctly. They're not testing for glyphosate at all. USDA is not even testing for it, and it's showing up in 85% of 10,000 different food samples of the things that you buy at the store every single day, including non-GMO crops like potatoes and oats, stuff that you're buying. Has a large level, could have a large level of glyphosate in it, which kills your microbiome. Like literally over 50% of your microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, is killed by this antibiotic, patented and labeled in 2010 as an antibiotic. And it's causing renal failure, kidney disease, infertility, intestinal permeability, which is leading to allergies and autoimmune diseases and neurodegenerative diseases. So, it's not about organic and conventional. It's about poison. And it's about our future generations of children and how they're being impacted by these people who are making a fucking insane amount of money lying to you, caught lying to you, and then trying to hide it multiple times. And you're buying those products. And Steffi, you're saying that this doesn't matter. Anybody that, just go to Steffi Cohen, at Steffi, STEFI, COHEN. Please, Steffi, watch this. Please educate yourself. Guys, go, I'm just reading research. Like, I took my fucking Saturday out because I care about the kids. I care about my community. I care about my friends. I care about the environment. It's fucking shit up. It's poison at extremely high doses. And the research is testing at low doses, and it's super fucked up. It's not about the nutrients, Steffi. It's not about the fact of, like, think about this. This is just logic, which blows my mind that you made this video with such arrogance. You were so cocky in the video. I hope this humbles you, dude. Of course, a bell pepper. Okay, paint. Great example. Paint. There's water-based paint, water-soluble paint, and oil-soluble paint, right? Fat-soluble paint, whatever. Same thing with pesticides. You have water-based pesticides and oil-based pesticides. So you've got 2 bell peppers. One bell pepper has been painted. The other bell pepper has not been painted. No shit, underneath the paint, the nutrients are the same. Why would they be different? It's the paint. We're talking about the paint. We're talking about the poison on top of the bell pepper. It has nothing to do with the nutrients. It has to do with the poison. And what's the soil made out of? Microbes. What does the plant take in? The microbes. What do we eat? Microbes. What are we? We're made of microbes, you fool. This is why I'm so passionate about JERF, guys. Biodynamic farming, holistic agriculture. This is how we save ourselves and the planet. This is how we don't become an infertile, sick and diseased species. We now are educated. This is beautiful. You know why? Because you are informed and hopefully emotionally fired the fuck up. Because you now are empowered. Information is power if it's followed by action. Information without action is ignorance. That's exactly what you demonstrated, Steffi. You just saw some information, somebody told you that, you're like working out at the gym, you're like, yeah, stupid idiots. Of course it's not this. Children are dying. Humans are dying. Humans are sick. We don't have a functional immune system. Nobody's even talking about an immune system. We're not going to have one if this continues. You guys watching this video, you need to share this. Don't follow me. I don't give a fuck. I really don't care. I just want your kids to grow up disease-free. Is that too much to fucking ask? I'm doing this for you. Steffi, you got 1 million followers, homie. That video was so cocky, you're just looking for attention. I don't care. I want people to have a healthy life. High life quality, happy, disease-free, fertile. You know how fucking emotionally devastating a miscarriage is? Are you kidding me? I know. I've been in that situation. How many of you women out there have had a miscarriage? There's so many, or birthing complications, and you don't want to talk about it. Because it's a sensitive subject. I know it is, guys, because you come to me and you say, hey, like, fuck, I'm fucked up on the inside and I don't know what to do. And the only thing I can do, the simplest thing I can do is say JERF. Because people are so fucking dense now and they're so used to that bullshit that you put out, Steph, of a 60-second clip saying, don't buy organic food, it'll waste your money. They are going to soak that up. Your 1 million followers are going to go soak that up. You know how many of your followers are moms that are now going to feed their kids glyphosate? You did that. You did that, Steph. You're telling your followers to ingest poison, and you did it in a way that will make them feel stupid if they don't. You were so arrogant in that video, and it crushed me. Because infertility, miscarriages, and chronic disease and cancer is a fucking big deal. Autoimmune disease is a big deal. Depression and anxiety is a big deal. And you're acting like, somebody share this with her. Somebody get this video to her. And share this with your loved ones. If anybody has any of these autoimmune diseases, anxiety, depression, how many? Everybody's like, fuck, everybody has that. Why? Because glyphosate's everywhere. It's in over 85% of the 10,000 foods that are tested, and the USDA is not even testing for glyphosate. This is a big deal, guys. There's a couple people making a fuckload of money off of your sickness. Here's the beauty. Information plus action equals change. Okay? Yertle the Turtle, Dr. Seuss. Go read those books. There's some good ones in there, right? Yertle the Turtle. He's at the bottom. Douchebags, Monsanto, EPA, USDA, Bayer at the top. He just fucking walks away. He stops giving them his attention and his money, his time, his energy. He walks away. What happens? Crumbles. Okay, Buckminster Fuller. It's not about tearing the old system down. It's about creating a new one right next to it. And then we feed that wolf and the other one starves. Okay, if nobody is buying pesticide food, what are they going to do? Change or go out of business, right? Like, that's it. And we know that it's a poison that's fucking up the water, the soil, human health, and animal health, and plant health. It's killing everything. And you're voting for it. All you need to do, vote for something else. That's all you need to do, guys, is just jerf. Just eat real food. It's not about organic, conventional. It's about real food. Food 200 years ago. What is it? Organic? What do you mean? You mean food? Like food. Real food. Not food like products. Not all these labels. You guys, they're so clever. You have to be smart. You have to use discernment. You have to educate yourself. You have to stand with your community. You have to protect your family and your tribe. I just had this conversation the other day. This last rant, I'll close. You think predators don't exist anymore? You see those raw nature videos of the fucking bird attacking the snake and shit? You think mammals are any different? Just because we don't live in small tribes anymore and dudes with spears come and fucking kill all the men and take the women and take the resources, it doesn't look like that on the physical level anymore. But that same engagement is happening. Predators and prey. The predators just dress up in suits. It's the only difference. They don't carry spears anymore. They carry briefcases. Okay? That predator and prey dynamic is still occurring. And you can soften up, roll over, and let them pillage your resources and kill your family. Slowly and sneakily, indirectly. Or you can stand up, you can speak up, we can get together, we can create a community of informed and action-oriented human beings. We are the greatest gift to this earth. If we can only stand together and change our thoughts, we change our thoughts, we change our reality. Okay? I hope this video changed your thoughts. Now, all you need to do is go change your actions. Share this video. Speak this information. Go do the research. Look into this. This is a big, big deal. And there's a lot of people out there that have massive influence. Steffi Cohen, 1 million followers, that are telling people to eat poison. And you're not cool if you don't. That's sad. That's sad. It's so sad. I'm sweating my ass off right now on a Saturday, wasting my time. Not wasting my time. This is what I'm here for. This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to stand with my family, with my tribe, and get those motherfuckers out. Get those motherfuckers out of here. That's the real truth, homie. We need to stand together. And with informed action, we can create change. Please, for the sake of our children, use this information to your benefit. Stand with your community, stand with your family, make a better decision today. Can you do better? Can you be better? Yes, you can. So it is.